to. So John Ourand from Puck, who used to be with Sports Business Journal and it was with us earlier this season, broke the news about the Orioles sale. John, great to have you on. Congrats on the new gig and on breaking this story. And I don't know if you realize how enthusiastic, how excited, just pick every positive adjective out there. Not just Orioles fans are feeling, but baseball fans in general, because we are now converting one of the worst owners in sports to what looks like a group that's going to actually spend money and care. And so how big is this for Baltimore?
You know what? I was on this show. When was it? It was back in like June, right?
Yeah.
And the Orioles were in first place, and I'm an Oriole fan. I grew up in DC. They're my team, and I was talking them up, and you guys depressed the hell out of me. You're telling me that they're never going to re-sign these guys, that they were gone. It's all changed now, totally. Only the Angelo's family can make the Baltimore fan base look at private equity and say we're saved. Private equity's coming to save us. So I have from people not in the business that are texting me, friends, longtime friends. I have heard the excitement. I've felt the excitement, and it just feels like something's moving because we have a good young team, and now we have deep pockets that can hopefully keep these guys together.
The thing is, for me, you said we depressed you last time we brought you on. Well, you should be throwing confetti right now because we're all in with you on this. Listen, we want Adley Rutschman to stay. We want Gunnar Henderson to stay. We want, Bradish to be signed. We want these guys to stay in Baltimore. Bautista, Cano, these guys to sign. Jackson Holliday sign a deal before he gets to the big leagues. These are things we want because we talked about it yesterday with Brock Holt. Man, I loved going to Baltimore. It's a great experience. It's a great place. Camden Yards still rocks 30 years later. And it can only get better if you keep the fans around and you keep the fans interested. So, let's get out some confetti and let's start throwing it that, hey, the Angelo's family is gone here eventually, right? And we got new owners that seem to care. They want to win, and they're putting improvements into Camden Yards. This is a great time to be an Orioles fan.
Yeah, I was just talking to a source at the home office in baseball, and it's a matter of weeks, not months. This is happening. There are no red flags around it. It seems like it's going to be as much of a rubber stamp to get this done as can be. So if you're a fan of the team, and Baltimore fans, I put this in my story. I have a son that was born in 1999, and I cajoled him. He wanted to be a Red Sox fan early on. I was like, you can't do that. You got to be an Orioles fan. He spent the first 12 years of his life cheering for under 500 baseball. Incredible. I've never seen a streak like that. So I felt guilty. I feel a little less guilty today.
Let me ask you this. So he told Angelo's told the governor, Wes Moore, that he wasn't going to sell the team. And now some state officials are pissed off about that whole interaction. Is that true?
I only know the reports that I've read, which are similar to yours. I can tell you that when Puck broke the story, the team didn't know that it was coming, and the state didn't know that it was coming. So it's entirely possible that they were planning to tell the state officials, but they didn't. But they learned about Puck's story as it dropped. So it was. I had pretty good sources on it that I didn't need to go to the team. It's a journalistic thing of loose lips sink ships. If you go to too many people.
Well, here I can provide more context too. So, John, you have the Maryland State Treasurer, Derek Davis, with those comments saying, if John Angelos can hear me now, it's deeply disappointing and troubling that you could look your state in the eye and outright lie to us about your intentions. We had a right to know, given the amount of investment we were committing to this. Since we say whatever we want on this show, I can put this out pretty clearly. John Angelos, reputation, daddy money guy, all the things he's done over the last couple of years definitely have hurt the franchise. So there's no surprise here that you cut a deal with the state where they're going to help you on your ballpark and potentially some other parts around the stadium for $600 million. It instantly upgrades your franchise in terms of valuation and probably helps him get a sale done. Now, sure, that's a dirty move. I'm going to counter this, though, John, because I'm also going to add that despite it being a dirty move, it is going to be a major net win for the state. And I'm usually not in favor, obviously, of states, cities, whatever, giving tax money to ballparks in general, but it already happened, so you can't be bitter about it. And here's the thing. It led to a sale to a group that actually cares and is going to win. I've done some homework and background on it. It sounds like big baseball fans, deep pockets, not necessarily spending like the Dodgers and Mets, but it's that similar realm of finance people that are going to invest in the team. They're not just looking to gouge every penny out of the ball club and say have someone like Angelos be the president of Masson paying himself $5 million a year despite not doing anything. So do you believe that this will be a massive net win for the city of Baltimore if they're consistently getting a product that's getting invested into? And that includes even the area, the ballpark, etc.
Yeah, that's a big if. So I hope you're right. I hope that the new ownership comes in. I hope the new ownership invests in the players on the team. I want to throw something out at the panel, though. I want to say something nice about John Angelos. He went through a strategy where I was among the people that killed him. Losing 120 games a season. That strategy is paying off on the field now. I know none of us believed that he was, and he even said he wasn't going to have the money to re-sign a lot of these players. But kind of taking a lot of the arrows and going through that strategy created a lot of the anticipation that the fans feel right now, I think.
Why doesn't he have the money? I don't
understand.
That's
the other. Yeah, that's the other question.
Where does money go? He just made $1.7 billion. That's billion with a B, by the way. So I mean, he didn't have money. I mean, their payroll is what, 70 million. He gets, I don't know what he gets from TV deals, but you add in revenue sharing. I guarantee you, they were making money. So it's not that he didn't have the money. It's just that he didn't want to spend the money.
I think it's because he treated the Orioles like it was a small market team, and that part of that was because when the Nationals came in, all of a sudden the Orioles used to go all the way down into North Carolina. Now they're being squeezed by the Phillies to the north and the Nats to the south. Both of whom have been in the World Series in the past. Well, when were the Nats there? 5 years or so.
Yeah, I'll counter this too, John. So two things.
I'm playing devil's advocate, by the way, before everybody jumps on me.
No, I'm not jumping. I'm going to give you the baseball perspective, and I like it. I agree. If you look at where they're at now, let's remember the Orioles are one of the best teams talent-wise in Major League Baseball right now. It is a young and talented team. So the best thing in my mind that John Angelos has ever done, which I think was brought up yesterday by one of our guests, is that he hired Mike Elias, because he has now built a powerhouse. And there are many teams in baseball that tank, and many of them fail. They tanked, which I'm against, especially once you have the resources to not deal with that. Reloading, okay. A couple years, step back, okay. But 5-6 years of tanking, what I think it does is it takes out a generation of baseball fans. So I just don't think it's a positive. And often it doesn't work. For them, it has worked beautifully. It was a similar model to what the Houston Astros did. So now, in order to reap the benefits and keep yourself in that place and be like the Astros, who haven't ever had to take a step back again since that time period, you do have to invest in the ball club. You do have to keep your Altuves, your Bregmans, right, et cetera, and sign those deals. The problem that I think most Orioles fans had was John Angelos said that he wasn't going to do that. And if he, God forbid, did that, he would have to jack up ticket prices, which is not how business works anyway. It's based off supply and demand. Those two things don't go completely hand in hand anyway. So now I think this is kind of the lifeboat, right? Where an owner comes in at the perfect time and they can say, great, we're handed an incredibly talented ball club. We can keep some of these players, add to it. And I think the rest of the AL East and their fans are pretty pissed off right now because the Orioles went from being a team that could be a flash in the pan for the next 3 years to a team that might be the best team in the AL East for the next 10 years.
It wasn't just that he said what he said, that when he said that he wouldn't be able to afford to re-sign Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and Jackson Holliday. It was when he said it. The Oriole fans have gone through a decade of the worst baseball imaginable. They're finally having a good season, and he comes out with a dose of reality of like, don't expect this. This isn't going to last. And it came after the Kevin Brown situation when he got rid of he suspended the announcer for saying that the Orioles had lost a lot in Tampa Bay. So it just created this idea, and especially in this area, because I mean, think about this, the whole DMV. I know DC's not Baltimore, but Dan Snyder going and then Angelo's going. It's just it created the impression a correct impression of just a meddling owner that just didn't want the focus to always be on the players on the field, which for a fan is unforgivable.
Yeah, and John, actually, it reminds me when we brought you on in June or July, whenever it was mid-season, it was actually sparked from Kevin Brown, the excellent play-by-play broadcaster for the Orioles, being suspended for basically nothing, for something that broadcasters do all the time. He essentially just said, "Hey, the Orioles haven't played well against the Rays lately," and John was like,
And
"That's it."
in that appearance, I couldn't even play devil's advocate. It was impossible to. There was no other side. I've been trying to find the other side, even still, and there is none.
No, I remember I was listening to you and Marchand on your podcast talking about it, and I was like, this is indefensible, and it's something that has to be brought out, and everybody in baseball broadcasting rallied together. So I want to take us to the Nats because you mentioned them, and there are a lot of tie-ins here because this deal includes MASN, which is the TV network that has been under litigation for, I think, 12 years between the Nationals and the Orioles. And I think a lot of fans now in DC are thinking, are the Nationals next to be sold? So apparently there was an offer a couple years ago from a group that included Ted Leonsis, who's a big name down there who owns the Wizards, I think, right? And
Correct. Yeah.
and also Rubenstein was in on that group, ends up buying the Orioles, and it was reported the Nats were offered $2.2 billion. They turned it down. Do you think now that MASN is in the hands of someone who's probably not going to keep it in litigation forever, that this team will be sold? And they've won a World Series lately, but I think the problem right now is they're going through a pretty successful rebuild. They're getting some really good prospects and some rising young players, but they're not spending at all yet. And I have a feeling that's because you keep costs down in order to sell a team.
Although they've just recently, in the past 2 days, have started spending on a couple of free agents. Not overspending, but putting some money out there. Um, I don't know what the resolution is to the MASN problem because there still is a MASN problem. If you're the Nationals, your biggest competitor, just like 45 miles to the north of you, control your media rights. That's an untenable situation to move forward with. Uh, and so I don't have any inside knowledge on what's going on with MASN, but what I can tell you is that these venture capital executives, billionaire owners, they are not going to invest close to $2 billion in a team if there's not some sort of resolution to to MASN in sight. So my marching orders for the next story that I need to get is what's going on with MASN, but I can virtually guarantee you that that the learners and Rubenstein, they know exactly what's going to happen with MASN, and that there will be a resolution at some point. There has to be.
I want to go back to the Orioles real quick. So Cal Ripken has a part to play in this all too as well. I was reading some tweets about it. Can you talk a little bit about him? He's very excited to be back, with the Orioles, the guy that's played the most games ever in a row nonstop. Can we bring up a little bit about Cal Ripken and what do you think he brings to the table to help out not only, the brass and being in that kind of works, but with the ball club as well?
Listen, I love Oriole fans. I think the Oriole fan base is a rabid fan base. It's been a sleeping giant. They haven't been taken care of for about 2 decades or more. I mean, ever since really the run in the mid '90s. And so I think the main thing that Cal Ripken brings is just something for the fans to grab a hold of and be part of. And if he turns out to be a really visible owner with the Orioles, it's just something that will help to solidify that fan base a lot more. So I don't know. Like you mentioned, Mike Elias. I don't see Cal Ripken getting into the room and sort of helping him out or anything like that. I almost see him as sort of a goodwill ambassador, just to help the franchise locally and to start to draw more people to the Camden Yards, because even last year, as they were winning more than 100 games, the attendance wasn't great.
I'll use this comp. When the Dodgers in their current group, the Guggenheim group, took over from Frank McCourt, I remember even then not knowing as much as I do now, going, whew, this is a big win for baseball. We've got deep pockets, people that care. Magic Johnson's part of the group, and it's mattered. Magic, I mean, I don't know how much baseball he knows. I don't think he's scouting, but he's been there. He's been around. He's been a part of the franchise. He's helped them. I'm imagining Cal's going to do the same thing. So my question to you, because you cover all sports, is does baseball need more of this? And when I say that, I mean, I study the ownership groups around baseball, and some of the new ones seem to be infusing just more care, more money, more of a sense of how modern business works. And then there's some groups that, are sons of a family that took over the team. They're more worried about taking profits out of this. And we know that's bad for the community. That's bad for the sport in general. That's just bad for business. When we're talking dollars and cents so frequently and not talking about fun and entertainment and innovation, that hurts the sport. So can we create more of this with moves like this?
So this has been a part of ownership structures for forever, really. I mean, if you look at the owners of the Orioles, you have the author Tom Clancy. You have a lot of you have a lot of Baltimore sort of natives that are with that. I think Pam Shriver is one as well. The Angelos family, and I'm not trying to bash the Angelos family on this one because no team really took advantage of that. But I think what you're starting to see is what you described in LA, and Magic Johnson is not a silent partner. You're seeing that just down the road in the NFL with the Commanders, and they brought Magic Johnson in and he's been very vocal, getting out on Twitter talking about the team and just kind of trying to build some excitement. And so I think the trend that you correctly identified is that some of these partners are no longer silent, and you're seeing a lot of the like so when Josh Harris was looking to buy the Commanders in the NFL, there were a ton of different groups locally that were trying to bring local celebrities in as sort of somebody to own like 5% or some smaller percent of it. The group that Josh Harris ended up going with is the Magic Johnson type group, but you're seeing a lot more of that, and I think I would expect, especially with Cal Ripken, that you'll see some of that. Curious about the Bloomberg connection. I heard Michael Phelps's name. I don't know if that's been out there or not, but I'm not reporting that. I've just heard that. So there are different connections to the Baltimore market to try to get that done.
Well, John, one place it didn't work out was in Miami. Remember they brought in some guy, I think he was a shortstop. He played for the Yankees.
Are you trying to get me something to say something nice about a New York Yankees shortstop?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, because they tried it. Remember, they brought in Jeter as president of baseball ops or whatever, and he lasted a few years and was like, "Man, this is a lot of work. This sucks."
But Jeter basically had Elias's role. Like they're not bringing in Cal to do that role. They're bringing in Cal to almost like greet fans come through the stadium. Although I'm sure it'll be a bigger role than that.
Sure, for sure. But we brought up the Nats, we brought up Masson, we brought up that whole mess. What's going on with the rest of baseball and their Bally/sports networks that aren't paying? I mean, you also cover this. Is there an end in sight to this? I saw where certain teams are going to get paid and certain teams aren't. I mean, is there an end to this coming up?
Yeah, there's an end in sight. We're going to find out by the end of this baseball season. My sense is that the baseball teams that have deals with Bally's are going to be fine for this season. And by the end of the season, we're going to get a sense of whether or not. So Bally's is owned by Diamond Sports, and Diamond Sports is in bankruptcy. And to try to come out of bankruptcy, Diamond Sports did a deal with Amazon, where Amazon is going to control the digital streaming rights. For I think only five baseball teams are in that, but eventually they're hoping to get more. So we don't know whether that's going to be successful or whether that's just sort of like a Hail Mary. Let's see if this ends up working. So I'm not going to predict anything. I'm just going to say that by September we're going to know if Bally's is going to start to really wind down, or if it's coming out of bankruptcy and it will be able to match those rights for the RSN rights for the local teams.
How much do you think it's affecting the sport in general, and how do you compare it to what NBA, NFL, and I guess NHL to an extent are going through? Like, I always like to get the litmus test from somebody who is looking at sports from a wider lens, because we're so baseball focused. Like, is baseball in a good spot long term? Because I think you'd probably agree baseball, in terms of being in the national landscape of conversation, has fallen behind where it used to be. So I'm always trying to figure out how can they get back there. And some of it has to be tied in to the way that these TV deals work, because the NFL's done such a great job of staying on network television. And then even when they do a big move like an Amazon, and I know you've talked about, Peacock and all of that, like it gets talked about a ton. MLB's been doing stuff like that for years. And some of it, I think, has been either too early or it's hurt the sport, because fans always complain about blackouts and I got to pay 8 subscription services just to find my game to watch all 162.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because there is a comparison to the World Series versus the NBA Finals, and but since we're talking about the RSNs locally, there is nothing bigger than baseball, and that presents somewhat of a problem, I think, for the league as you do these national deals. I don't think it's a huge problem though, but locally, baseball ratings and just the minutes viewed. You have 162 games versus 82 for basketball and 80 for hockey. So there are more games, there are more people watching the games, and so because of that, the bullseye is really on baseball as it pertains to these local rights. And so if regardless of what happens to Diamond and the Bally Sports, there's an unmistakable trend that's happening in the business to where people are cutting the pay TV cord and going to streaming services. As that happens, the money that baseball teams get from the RSNs is going to drop, and as that money drops, it's going to potentially affect everything from player salaries to front office salaries to just people working for the teams. And so I don't want to sound like Chicken Little, but there is like a disaster scenario where like the RSN money dries up and you don't know where to go and try to find it, and that's going to be from the next time a players association deal is up, that's it's something that's going to be really a tough one to get through.
Okay, so you're saying that the money in the RSNs is drying up. Where does baseball make up that money? What's the next thing? I asked this the other day, and everyone's kind of like, I don't really know. What's the next thing? What's the next way for baseball to keep up? Is it an all-inclusive streaming deal? Is it just a local streaming deal where you just stream your own team? I mean, what's the way? Because baseball is not going to be like, we're losing money. We're giving money back. Like, how does MLB keep up and continue to make the money that they're making now?
That's the whole problem. I don't see a path to where they can make the same amount of money that they make now. That the pay TV business is so good for sports. The sports business couldn't come up with a better strategy than what pay TV provided them. So you guys know I'm an Orioles fan who lives in Washington, D.C., and I watch as many games as I can on MASN. Well, when I walk my dog at night and I look into people's like windows and I see what they're watching, I'm the only one watching the Orioles. But all those other people are paying for the per subscriber fee that MASN gets. So they're subsidizing my addiction to want to watch the Orioles. So what you described, like as you go to streaming, all of a sudden I'm going to be the only one going to the streaming on the block. And so what are they going to have to charge me in order to stream those games? I can't depend on my neighbors to help subsidize that anymore. That's going to have to come from just the hardcore and casual fans. And then since we did start talking about the Orioles and they're my team, like what are the odds I would have bought a streaming package for the Orioles from 2017 through 2020 or 2021? Like zero. So it just becomes a much more difficult. There's still money to be made. Local rights are still valuable. It's just that we're transitioning right now from a system that is so profitable and so good for major professional sports.
So then, John, my last one for you. Do you believe in the current plan that is being put in place during these bankruptcy hearings? So Amazon jumps in kind of at the last moment, right? It's like ninth inning, down a few runs. Looks like things are going to wind down and the league was going to take over the rights. And the plan was for them to keep taking over rights of teams I think, package that, and then have them run it and license it to a place like Amazon, Apple, etc. Amazon jumps in, provides that lifeboat to Diamond Sports so that they can keep going. And it looks like if it gets approved, they will now be a long-term company again. Do you think that's better? Like, do you think Amazon and Bally's Diamond, whatever you want to call it, together is a better force than the league, and the league running everything and the media and then just licensing that to, say, a tech streamer?
Yeah, and I think that's a better system, because I think it makes a lot more sense to get a third party involved, to and especially a third party like Amazon that already has a structure in place to where they can get this out. This was like actually when, a bunch of teams, the Yes Network launched and it was successful. So then every team decided they wanted to launch their own regional sports network. This is 20 years ago, so I'm sounding like an old guy, and I apologize. But for a lot of these teams, it's so much easier to just sit on your butt and collect money. Like, why do I don't want to have to set up and build out a production studio and hire talent and produce games and have all these added expenses. It's so much easier for me just to sit down and collect a check every month. And I think that's something that Amazon will, or a company like Amazon will provide for the digital streamers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like it. I like the way that it's looking at the moment. So we'll see what happens. And obviously for us, I mean, we're just on the outside. We just want fans to complain less and just enjoy the games and have a good
If that
time.
happens, I'm dying to see if that happens.
Right? I just want happiness for people. I'm that simple these days. So that's how all of us are. Well, John, it was awesome having you. Congrats again. I don't know if there's anything you want to plug that you've got coming up, or the move to Puck, but if so, kind of throw it out there, because I think I mentioned to you in text, I follow one of the other kind of Puck pods and writing from one of your now colleagues in the sports, or I guess more in the business media, TV, sports world.
For Bellany, yeah.
Yeah.
This is my first week. You got me on my fourth day at Puck News. Broke the Orioles story on the second day. I was very happy about that one. I've been at Sports Business Journal for about 18 years, now at Puck. And guys, I love coming on this show. So anytime you ask, I'll come on. You guys do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, John. And yeah, you can follow John. The Twitter handle is Ourand_Puck. John Ourand with us on FT Live. Thanks again, John. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Happy New Year, John.